There we go. That's good. Try again. Good morning. Hello to those of you joining us on the internet. Avi, if you're out there, we're just barely scraping by. It's tough, but we're making it go. Little guilt. Avi's in New York with his mom. Well, anybody here for the first, hi Jeff. Anybody here for the first time today? 1, 2, 3, 4. Great. 5. Welcome. To those of you here for the first time, I have a particular blessing that I always think of, that I hope it turns out to be worthwhile that you got up and came this morning. And beyond that, I hope that what you discover here actually transforms your life. And because finding a spiritual path that really works for us does transform our lives. And leads to a lot more happiness and freedom and compassion and effectiveness in our actions in the world. And we really need a spiritual direction. And there's a lot of confusion about that these days. I guess maybe always. One part of the talk that I'm going to offer an hour hence is a beautifully named sutra from the Buddha called the Malunkyaputta Sutta. Isn't that nice? It's got a nice onomatopoeia. A Malunkyaputta Sutta about the questions that aren't worth asking. The questions that don't lead anywhere. And so I'll be talking about them some. Please bear with my cold. My weak link is my lungs, and as soon as I get a cold, it goes into my lungs. And so I'll turn off the microphone if a serious coughing attack is coming, but it's there, it's sniffing. Cold viruses are difficult, aren't they? Sickness is really difficult. Even minor sickness like this. So we're going to start, as we commonly do, with this singing of the refuge in the Buddha Dharma Sangha. It's for 2,600 years, people have chanted a particular chant, which is reminding us about a place of stability of a sort in the midst of a world which is utterly unstable. And I always think of this at this moment, which is that the Buddha wasn't a Buddhist and he didn't teach Buddhism. He taught the Dharma. He taught an experiential way of having the experience that he had. And that's, to the best of my and our ability, what we're trying to do here at PIMC. So when we take refuge in the Buddha, it's not in some person who died 2,600 years ago. It's in that capacity that is in all of us, which is the Buddha, which is awake. It's that which is the awareness which is present right now. It's right here. And that which knows what's happening. And then the Dharma, taking refuge in what's discovered. What do I discover when I'm awake? What's real? And then we do that in the company of our friends. That's the refuge in Sangha. But I like to take it bigger than that, which is that we're all of us here on this little tiny spaceship that we live on. This mysterious life that's happening. So we have brothers and sisters who have wings, and others who have hooves, and some who swim, and some who crawl, some who slither. And that's our true community. That's our vast community. So I invite you to join me in this to the degree you wish. And let's start with a cough. Oh, I guess I also want to say, I want to thank everyone who came last night. Thank you, Kirsten, for helping pull it together. We had a wonderful, we called it talent night, but it was much more than that. It was an opportunity, but there weren't many. How many were there? 15 all told, maybe 15. What it became was an infinite not an infinite, well, maybe an infinite too. An intimate, two close words. An intimate manifestation of beauty emerging in different voices and different styles. So there was art, there was Larry reading a chapter from his remarkable memoir. It was amazing. And singing and I had zero anxiety, which was really quite lovely. I sang Gordon Lightfoot's The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, as Larry said this morning, all Canadian songs are sung in the key of A. I'm going to use that a lot. I am Canadian, of course, you can tell from my accent. And I tell this, when I'm in Canada, I always tell this joke. You know how they named the country? John A. Macdonald, who's the founder, kind of like Washington for Canada. John A. Macdonald and the guys were, what'll we call this place? And finally he came, he says, I've got it. C-A-N-A-D-A. All right. So I invite you to join me in this song, which we can't sing wrong, because really what it is the mystery manifesting as each of us bringing some beauty into the world. Oh, I turned this on. Is that coming out there now? Can't have it too loud, because then all my missed finger picks will sound too obvious. I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and love. Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya. I take refuge in the Bhutsanga, the community of mindful harmony. Namo Sangaya, Namo Sangaya, Namo Sangaya. Once more, I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and love. Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community of mindful harmony. Namo Sangaya, Namo Sangaya, Namo Sangaya. Nice. One of the ways ways that we harmonize with each other is to sing together. Not something we do much in our culture anymore. 40 years ago, I was a ski patrolman in Switzerland for a winter. The mountain I was on was the destination where the ski instructors came at the beginning of the year. There was snow there before the other places. And they were there for a week, and there were 250 of them or something like that. And they spoke French, German, Italian, and Romansh, the fourth language of Switzerland. And they sang together. Sometimes at lunch there'd be 250 people singing together. In the cable car, they'd sing in 4 parts. This is because they all knew their songs. It's a wonderful way of harmonizing. So traditionally through religion or spirituality, we've done chants, and this is one of the ways we do that. So, let's do nothing for a while. Stop, sit comfortably upright. The Buddha sat cross-legged because he was from a small village in India. It's not the optimal posture. Sitting comfortably upright is optimal. Though that gives way to realizing that every posture is the optimal posture. So we have a body. Why not inhabit it? Right now, your body is touching the chair or the floor or the cushion. That which you take to be your hands are alive. Why not inhabit them? Why not direct this mysterious awareness to be alive in your hands? Why not notice your face? So much life in your body. Wherever you direct awareness, you'll discover life. And this is the life of the present moment. And your body's doing something very normal and remarkable, which is that it's breathing. So why not inhabit breathing? Notice that your body breathes all by itself. There's the body breathing, and there is that which knows it. Something is aware of breathing. By taking this present moment sensation experience of breathing as a primary training object, and forming the intention to stay there without violence, but with a kind of gentle determination. Something changes. Somehow or another, we become aware more frequently, more fully, when the mind is not with the breath, when it's off doing something else. So when there is awakening to this wandering mind, we now have an option of something to, quote, do, which would be, why not reestablish awareness of breathing in and breathing out? The attitude with which we approach this task of a sort is of the utmost importance. We can try so hard that our practice takes on a certain warlike characteristic, a certain violence. Or on the other extreme, we can have no intention or effort at all, and then nothing happens. So there's a flavor of kindness or love or compassion, a sense of trust when we come into balance. Hearing the great xylophone of our time. Now, if we don't understand practice, we could think of something like that as a distraction, as a problem. But that sound, that familiar sound, had all the same characteristics as everything else that we attend to. It came out of nowhere, persisted a little while, and then disappeared. Just like every breath, just like every thought, just like every relationship, every political system, everything. So the teachings blaze at us. So coming home, coming really landing with the delicacy and beauty of a butterfly landing on a flower, on this breath right now. With great determination and gentleness and sweetness, noticing whatever else the mind does, and then coming home to here, to now. it could well be that in this moment the mind is in enough uproar that it's next to impossible to come home to the breath and stay there, even for a whole breath. That's not a failure. It's not doing something wrong. That's the human mind. Sometimes it gets filled with wanting, with desire. Sometimes it gets filled with wanting not, with disliking, with aversion, with hatred. Sometimes it's colored with restlessness and agitation and worry. Other times it's dull and sleepy and bored. Still other times it's full of doubt and despair, dispiritedness. And all the whole pantheon of human emotions. Our task is, over time, to embrace all of it. We learn to bear that which was previously unbearable. We learn to accept the open spaciousness of love and compassion and joy beyond our wildest imaginings. This is why it's called refuge in the Dharma and the way things are. The practice is deceptively simple. You could say, well, this is kind of a kindergarten practice. Come home to the breath. Well, this abiding with in-breathing and out-breathing opens up countless doors. Doors of presence. Doors of kindness. So each breath is an invitation. Be here, be alive, be awake. Hopefully you slept well last night, and when you woke up from sleep, there you were. There was awareness again, self-reflective awareness. You can notice how the same thing happens when the mind wanders off and gets caught up in some dream or another, some worry, some plan, some story of the past or fantasy of the future. And then it's as though you wake up. It's as though rather suddenly there's knowing, oh, those are thoughts. The mystery of that waking up is the core of spiritual practice. To wake up from the dream of everyday life, from the fantasies that we get lost in, the stories of the self. Every breath comes out of nowhere, doesn't exist, and then it begins. And then it rises to fullness. And then it stops a little for a second, a tenth of a second, and then breathing out occurs, and then it ends. Let this breathing in and breathing out become your closest friend for the rest of your life. Eventually, of course, it too stops. But until then, it can be such a powerful handrail, a guardrail, a place to touch for orientation. This experience of the body and the mind at this point is contact with reality. This is what's happening. And please now notice where your body is touching the chair or the cushion or the floor. Notice the life in your legs and knees. Notice the life in your solar plexus and abdomen. In your hands and fingers and arms. Notice the life in your face, that which you take to be a face. Tingling, vibrating, your lips, cheeks, your eyes. And let your eyes roll around a little bit in that beautifully lubricated orbit they're in. And then observing how the mind is involved, create an intention, a plan, to lift your eyelids open. And then notice that it takes a moment. You have to decide to do this, and then take a moment, and then open the eyes. Make the effort required to peel up those eyelids and see what happens. Seeing happens. Seeing. Seeing with awareness, knowing of seeing. How do you do that? I guess the answer is you don't. We don't. The Buddha said, in the seen, only the seeing, no seer is to be found. Heavy teaching. Well, from here, from this moment, I'm going to invite Jim up in a moment to do a little movement, and then I guess I'll do I guess I'm doing the announcements after Jim. I invite you to stay for the Dharma talk. And also to stay after that for tea and coffee and goodies and getting to know one another. There's an oft-quoted line from the Buddha. He had a younger cousin, I think he was, his name was Ananda, who was his attendant for 35 years or something like that. And Ananda proved to be the perfect foil for the Buddha to emphasize certain points. And one time the Buddha was away and he came back, and Ananda said, I understand that the community, the Sangha, is half of the holy life. And the Buddha said, say not so, Ananda. Spiritual community is the whole of the holy life. That we really need each other. And in that regard, I want to do something I've wanted to do for a long time. Doug, would you come up here for a sec? Doug Pullen? And Jim? Yo. I have your diploma. Just come up here. I want you on either side of me. These two guys, if one ever had friends, this is the real thing. Doug went to India with my first wife and I in 1978, and we kind of fell in love there. And I hired him when we came back, and we've been Dharma blood brothers ever since. And Jim blew in 25 years ago?
91.
91. And this place wouldn't exist without them. There's been incredible help from many other people. I mean, stunning help from other people. But when I've fallen down, you've helped me up, and you both bring such beautiful heart and wisdom to the Dharma. So I just wanted to acknowledge that in the public sphere. That's a Vulcan mind melt. So that doesn't say what I want to say, but I love you, and I'm so glad you're here. And yes.
Thank you.
So, yay. You have the helm, sir.
All right. Thank you. So we come again into contact with our feet, rocking back and forth, noticing that the toes only go one direction. So we can kind of lean forward from the ankles and the toes support us. So we try to do that backwards, it doesn't work. I've tried it. Moving to one side, we can feel the earth element in one leg and then the lightness in the other leg. Just take the other leg and kind of scratch the floor a little bit and feel how light that is in comparison with the contact, and then switch. The earth element is there. We are not earth, we are of the earth and some other stuff. We can feel the lubrication in our eyes, where Robert took us through that little guided tour of the body. There's watery elements, there's air elements that just float. We take a breath in and we almost naturally rise and then release the breath and make a little stronger contact with the earth. And then there's this fire inside that's digesting our food and warming our heart. So we have these elemental forces that we're working with, and we sink and let them rise up with the breath and sink again, noticing all the sensations that tell us this whole body moves and breathes. Present with just sensations. There's no particular story with this movement. It's just the natural in-breathing, out-breathing. Opening, more capacity for fresh air. Sensations in the rib cage, all those little tiny muscles between the ribs. Sensations in the shoulder blades. We lift, we're kind of neutral, and then we open, and the shoulder blades come together very tight, and then they release. So there's a watery element back there that's lubricating this massage that we're giving ourselves. And then we lift overhead, paint a rainbow, use the imagination to invite a new mood. Seems like it's a gray day, but we can create a rainbow with our imagination, brighten things up. Then reach up and separate the clouds. And again, feel the shoulder blades. They squeeze together. And then down here, they open up. Giving ourselves a gentle massage in the upper spine. Renewing our bodies after sitting still for so long. Turning, opening the hands to the sky, pushing with one hand, pulling with the other, reversing the process. There's sensations in the forearm, and the wrist, and the fingers. Simple gestures filled with presence. And then if this isn't harmful for your shoulders, drop back, open as far as is healthy for you, and then sink. Noticing the fluid quality of the shoulder socket. It has the ability to turn and twist and open in many different dimensions here. Then another way of lifting and relaxing. One foot becomes engaged with the floor, the other heel just floats up. Hearing. We don't usually think about it. We're hearing movement. Turning, gazing at the moon. The symphony of the floorboards. Pressing across. And then reaching across for cloud hands, we focus on the palm of the upper hand and let the lower hand face towards the earth. And as we come across the midline, the room turns. I don't know how it does that. I just stay in contact with the palm of my upper hand, and magically the room pivots. Who's in charge of this? Getting the room to move like this. So awareness has this amazing plasticity. It can focus right in the center of our palm, and it can embrace the whole room as it floats by. And we can move our center of gravity out to the side and lean in and splash in the sea, open the arms. Lifting the toe, all the weight's on the back leg. And then riding the waves, leaving the feet where they are. They know how to balance. Each gesture calls forth a different system of balance. Opening the arms, palms up. We turn the wrists. And immediately the body gets involved in a new pattern of balance. Intelligence flows out of every cell, coming back, centered, stepping out, splashing. Riding the waves. Opening the arms. And back to the center. Finding both feet engaged. Similarly with the floor, we sink, make a fist, let the dragon rise from the sea. Feeling that sense of agency throughout the whole body. Intending to rise out of the sea and then following the movement. Intending to spread our wings and fly with the cranes up on the toes. Intending, turning the wheel. All these different sensations telling us it's time to switch direction. Loosen up the other side. And then coming back to the center, feeling the stillness. So there's no gesture, but there's no stillness either. The whole body continues to vibrate. Then lifting one hand and one knee, just playfully switching our engagement with the floor from one foot to the other. One side of the body stable and strong, the other side moving. How does it know how to do that? Or maybe it doesn't. Okay, then coming back to our centering breath, we just enjoy the full breath, drawing new energy in. Releasing what we don't need. The earth makes use of it in all kinds of different ways. This reciprocal arrangement with the whole atmosphere of the planet, available to us each time we need it, and receiving whatever we cast off. And coming to stillness again. Checking in with this river of sensation that is our default hum of aliveness in this body. Again, we can place the attention very specifically on the left toe, the big toe on the left foot, or the back of the right heel. or the right knee, or the left shoulder. The awareness can focus and hold. Or we can sink, open up, and just embrace the whole fluid movement of the body. So, thank you again for joining with me and exploring this strange sensation, moving the body. Thank you.
Back by popular demand, we have Kate Staples, who has realized that I am not well and has agreed to take over and give the Dharma talk. Oh. Oh, it was? No?
Testing?
Yeah,
There we go.
now it is.
I just wanted to let you know that Christine and I are going to do a half-day women's retreat on March 31st. So save the date. We're going to just do a little exploration about the nature of being a woman. So I look forward to seeing you there. I'll try and get an announcement out with details this week, but I wanted to get on your calendar. Thanks.
Huh. That's disappointing. I have to. Kate always loved to be surprised like that. Bye. I'm out of here. Announcements. Is it Friday? Where'd you go? There you are. Is it Friday? 7 p.m. The writer and director Jim Cassidy, sitting here, is showing here the world premiere of his movie A Most Convenient Convergence. And it's a very hopeful movie about the remarkable technologies that are coming, that if we adopt them, we may just pull this baby out of the fire, which would be nice. So Friday night, right? It's a benefit for PIMC, $5 or something at the door, I forget. And donation $5. So come and join the festivities. Announcements. I'm going to be brief on announcements. Please bring warm clothes, other things that can help people that are in transition from homelessness. We have so much, don't we? And what a great place to bring it here, and Michael will be sure that it gets to the right spots. If you'd like to be connected in with the community, we have a listserv. You can sign up online, and you can also sign up back there. Are we having Dharma consults today? Is that? No? Yes? Doug is on. So you can talk to Doug. You could talk to Doug Poland. God, for 20 minutes, 3 people could have that incredible privilege. So if you can sign up at the back or see Doug, and we meet inside here in the vestry. That's good fortune. 20 minutes with Doug Poland to talk about your practice. All right. You can also meet with me if you call Avi or call my phone number. Call Avi and set up a half-hour Dharma consult, and there's no fee for that. Part of being here. And there's meetings on various different kinds of times during the week, different flavors and times, and I invite you to try out some of the others too, because they're all very helpful. And support. This is your place. If you want to belong here, you do. Way back when we were doing the charter, like chartered with the state, we had to decide whether it would be a membership or a non-membership organization. And we decided to make it a non-membership organization because so many people have been trapped by organizations and, you better join. The only way you can belong here is to participate. And you can participate in a lot of ways. You can volunteer. There's lots of, Kirsten is the volunteer coordinator. And there's lots of things you can do. And if you have a particular skill, like a professional skill, let us know and we will probably find a way to make that be useful to you and for us. You can volunteer by, you can contribute financially. There's a bowl at the back of the room that you can put your financial excess in. You can also contribute online. And I don't want to go too long on this, but generosity is one of the three legs of a spiritual practice, of a stool. There's generosity, there's training the heart, mind, and there's moral and ethical behavior. And generosity goes like this. See this? This is mine. My precious. That feels crappy to me, and probably not so good to you. Whereas if I said, well, I like this, if you really need it, you can borrow it at least, you can have it. That the attitude between this, I don't have enough, I have to have mine, and ours is the attitude between fear and love. So one of the ways to practice that with PIMC is financially, and you can do that online, and it feels good. And then you'll find lots and lots of different ways to practice that. I was on my way home last night and I stopped at the 7-Eleven over in Selwood, and there were two guys with bicycles, obviously homeless. And I went and talked to them for a bit, and I said, are you guys sleeping out tonight? And they said, yeah. And I said, do you have enough calories in your body to stay warm? And the one fellow looked at me and said, never. So I was able to take them into the store and buy them a bunch of yucky food, hot dogs and things like that. But I know what it's like. I've chosen, I slept out at 48 below zero in Yellowstone, but I was a young person on an expedition with puffy duffy wet, but these guys are living out there in this weather. And what a delight. I got to go home and feel, whew, I did it. I mean, it's right, it's nothing. But it was something to them. And we had a nice conversation, a lot of kindness between us. So generosity, find ways to practice it, and PIMC is one of the ways. Okay. Announcements. Oh, I should maybe just put this in. Come summer, which will be tomorrow, why don't you come to Nelson, British Columbia for 12 days and do a retreat that I'll be leading with my colleague and friend, what's his name? Don McEachern. And if not that, then Brighton Bush for 5 days in the end of July. Change your life. Retreats make a big difference. All right, poetry. And Doug, you have another big introductory class coming up in April, don't you? Yeah. Doug does a marvelous 5-week, he's like Douglas Dharma Seed. Huh? 6 weeks. Oh, 6 weeks. Yeah. Lots of, hundreds of people have done that. I mean, really a lot. Okay. Hi. I guess I have one more announcement, which is starting next Sunday, we will be, PIMC, this room and the living room will be wheelchair accessible with some difficulty. The washroom will not be ADA functional. Some wheelchairs wouldn't fit in there. We'll be moving. We're moving forward at the pace we do on such things to get the whole thing done. We'll have eventually, before too long, by summer, there will be a door where those 3 windows are, and there'll be a ramp that brings the person up to that. And then the washrooms will be fixed so that they're ADA compliant. But there's one person in particular that I've been working with in his home who really wants to come. And so starting someday this week, a pretty heavy 12-foot ramp will show up. And I fixed the doors just the other day. Cool hinges on these doors. I encourage you to look at them. They're really neat. They let the door open completely. And so in order for someone to come, you need to have not an advocate, but someone who will help you. So if you want to have someone come, you'd need to help to organize it. So what it will be, we'll open the gate, and a person can roll up to the ramp. And the ramp will be sort of steep, but doable. Into the living room, and then we'll move the ramp up to and then person can roll in here. Washroom, not so accessible, but it would be possible to do that. So that's a big deal. We've been talking about it for a decade, and we're finally getting it to happen. Huh?
Can people make donations to make it happen?
Yes. Yes, if you'd like to make a donation for the wheelchair, we haven't got our capital campaign rolled out yet, but if you'd like to just beat the gun and make a donation for the capital campaign, write as big a check as you want, as big as feels comfortable. We need to raise about $50,000 to do it, and another 12 or 15 to tie the building down to its foundation, and there's a few other things we're going to do at the same time. Thank you, Danny. You practical person. So speaking of practical, sorry for the sniffing. Speaking of practical, I would like to acknowledge the dukkha, the suffering of some of my colleagues and friends and students. And no doubt it's true for those of you in this room that I don't know what's going on in your lives. We have community members for whom the veil between permanence and impermanence has been torn. People whose parents have died. People who have had a beloved pet die, or a beloved pet be very sick and in threat. People who have had received very scary medical diagnoses. People whose relationships sometimes of decades have just disappeared, or are in the process of disappearing, with all the anguish of that. And so they are faced with we are really, if it's convenient to say they, but we are faced with this profound disappointment, which is part of a significant piece of the fabric of human life. Things so often don't turn out like we would like. And we cling to, the Buddha spoke of 3 great delusions that we have. And it's actually the operational hypothesis of the insight meditation practice, which is, well, the delusions are, I can make something permanent. I can make something last. Which, on the face of it, since the Great Flash or the Big Bang or whatever that was, nothing has been stable, right? Why? What an inflated craziness that I think I'm going to make something stable. So that's the first great delusion, permanence. The second is that I can come to a place where I will be satisfied, where I will be content. I don't, we'll see if it lasts, but I had quite an aha just yesterday. My eating tends to go, it sort of gets out of control for a while, and then something goes, wait, what am I doing? This is nuts. And then, and my health would be better if I wasn't as heavy as I am now, and so on. But I was stuffing something into my mouth, and I paused, and I thought, there was a moment of, why am I eating this? Well, I'm dissatisfied. I'm not really hungry, I'm just feeling dissatisfied. And I'm using this peanuts, it was peanuts. I'm using this to try to feel satisfied, and it isn't going to work. Never does. And we do that with lots of things, don't we? With houses, relationships, children, politics, you name it. There's so many of all of our various addictive things. So anyway, the aha was, I think, and we'll see, this has happened a few times before, and what happens is rather remarkably, the eating becomes not the focus, it switches to something else, and then my weight drops another 5 or 10 pounds, which isn't good for me. But it points out this second great truth, which is dissatisfaction. And then the third, which is really the beautiful jewel at the heart of the Buddha's teachings, the delusion is that I have a self, that I'm an entity. And the tremendous promise in it is, if we realize that I'm not an entity, it's not that I then become nothing, it's that I become everything. So, the spiritual journey, as I understand it, is about developing a consciousness which can actually examine these questions. Is it true that everything is impermanent? Is it true that there isn't lasting satisfaction? And is it true that I really don't have to go around trying to have a self so hard? Can I have all that relief? Can I accept things as they are? And of course, the big reminders of these things being true is when life changes, right? When suddenly our pet is terminally ill or in risk of that, or when something really difficult happens, when change happens. Yeah. Choices. I think I want to say this one. There are many levels of application of insight meditation in our lives. One is at the level of stress management, and that's popularized in the realm of mindfulness-based stress reduction, and it's remarkably effective. We can learn to relax, and it can affect our physiology enormously and our medical conditions. And we can learn to turn off the sympathetic arousal and have the parasympathetic system come on and blood pressure normalize, and that's nowhere near theory. That's what I say. That's been proven with Western scientific method. Then there's the application at the level of our psychology. If we meditate, we become aware of what we're thinking. We become aware of our emotions. We become capable of modulating our emotions. We become more and more aware of the beliefs that we have and the incredible prejudices that we have and the presumptions that we have. And we can learn to deal with depression and anxiety in much more skillful ways. So therefore we use less of our unskillful coping mechanisms. There's a sort of a way of application of, as we become healthier and can relax and be more psychologically stable and fit, we can become more loving, of course. But then we can also take our place of responsibility in the world. And if we're called to activism, then we can participate in activism in a skillful way, because we actually aren't acting out our hatred and anger or our unconscious aggression. We actually are creating a wake behind us, no matter what our activist orientation is, which is based in kindness and love and compassion. And then there's this other level of application of the Dharma, which is where it soars, which is around the question, who am I? And what happens when I die? Or how can I prepare for my death? Or what about this fear that's hanging around here down in the sub-basement, that I'm always somewhat frightened because I'm afraid things are going to change, or I'm afraid this lovely little supportive spot that I find myself in right now is going to disintegrate. And the fact is, of course, it is going to disintegrate. So how do we come to terms with the existential questions? And that's the realm of spiritual practice. So it's addressing the really fundamental questions. And it's there that I want to go now. Kabir, 15th century Sufi mystic. There's nothing but water in the holy pools. I know. I've been swimming in them. All the gods, sculpted of wood or ivory, can't say a word. I know, because I've been crying out to them. The sacred books of the East are nothing but words. I looked through their covers one day sideways. When Kabir talks, it is only of what he has lived through. If you have not lived through something, it is not true. There's nothing but water in the holy pools. I know, I've been swimming in them. All the gods, sculpted of wood or ivory, can't say a word. I know, I've been crying out to them. The sacred books of the East are nothing but words. I looked through their covers one day sideways. What Kabir talks of is only what he has lived through. If you have not lived through something, it is not true. That last one is, if you have not lived through something, it is not true. As I understand the Buddha's teachings, they're all designed with one purpose in mind: to help the person who chooses to follow the path to have the experience the Buddha had. Not to believe in the Buddha, not to become a devotee of the Buddha, not to believe what's in the books, not to become a good Buddhist, but to have the same experience the Buddha had. Because that experience is self-validating, and is free. So I want to, can I find this? I think I can, yes. Impressive. This is about, it'll be about 5 minutes of reading. And I was summarizing it, and I thought, nah, just read the sutra. It'd be a nice taste of the traditional teachings too. Thus have I heard the Kula Malunkyavada Sutta, the shorter instructions to Malunkya. I've heard that on one occasion the Blessed One was staying near Savatthi at Jeta's Grove, Anathapindika's monastery. Then, as Venerable Malunkyaputta was alone in seclusion, this train of thought arose in his awareness. These positions that are undeclared, set aside, discarded by the Blessed One, the cosmos is eternal, the cosmos is not eternal, the cosmos is finite, the cosmos is infinite, the soul and the body are the same, the soul is one thing and the body another. After death, a Tathagata exists. After death, a Tathagata does not exist. After death, a Tathagata both exists, and the Tathagata is the Buddha. He called himself the one such gone, rather than I, awkward term. After death, I don't approve. I don't accept that the Blessed One has not declared, has not answered these questions to me. I'll go to him about this matter. If he declares to me that the cosmos is eternal, that the cosmos is not eternal, that the cosmos is finite, or that it is infinite, or that the soul and the body are one, and that the soul is one thing and the body another, and that after death a Tathagata exists, and after death a Tathagata does not exist, and that after death a Tathagata can both exist and not exist, or that, etc. If he won't answer these questions, I will renounce the training and return to the lower life, to the householder life, us, the lower life. Low lives. Then, when it was evening, Venerable Malunkyaputta arose from seclusion and went to see the Blessed One. On arrival, having bowed down and sat to one side, he sat to one side. As he was sitting there, he said to the Blessed One, Lord, just now, as I was alone in seclusion, this train of thought arose, and then it repeats. If the Blessed One knows that the cosmos is eternal, then may he declare that the cosmos is eternal. If he knows that it is not eternal, may he declare that to me, and so on. The Buddha replies, Malunkyaputta, did I ever say to you, come, Malunkyaputta, live the holy life under me, and I will declare to you that the cosmos is eternal, the cosmos is not eternal, the cosmos is finite, or the cosmos is infinite, or the soul and body are the same. And he goes on. Well, no, Lord, you didn't say that. And did you ever say to me, I will live the holy life under the Blessed One, and in return he will declare to me that the cosmos is eternal? Well, no. Then that being the case, foolish man, who are you to be claiming grievances and making demands of anyone? He was kind of direct, wasn't he? Malunkyaputta, if anyone were to say, I won't live the holy life under the Blessed One as long as he does not declare to me that the cosmos is eternal, etc., 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 it's just as if a man were wounded by an arrow thickly smeared with poison. His friends and companions, kinsmen and relatives would provide him with a surgeon, and the man would say, I won't have this arrow removed until I know whether the man who wounded me was a noble warrior, a Brahmin, a merchant, or a worker. He would say, I won't have this arrow removed until I know the given name and clan name of the man who wounded me, until I know whether he was tall, medium, or short, until I know whether he was dark, ruddy brown, or golden colored, until I know his home village, city, or town, until I know whether the bow with which I was wounded was a longbow or a crossbow, until I know whether the bowstring with which I was wounded was fiber, bamboo thread, sinew, hemp, or bark, until I know whether the shaft with which I was wounded was wild or cultivated, until I know whether the feathers of the shaft with which I was wounded were those of a vulture, a stork, a hawk, a peacock, or another bird, until I know whether the shaft with which I was wounded was bound with the sinew of an ox, a water buffalo, a langur, or a monkey, he would say, I won't have this arrow removed until I know whether the shaft with which I was wounded was that of a common arrow, a curved arrow, a barbed, a calf-toothed, or an oleander arrow. The man would die, and those things would still remain unknown to him. In the same way, if anyone were to say, I won't live the holy life under the Blessed One as long as he does not declare to me the cosmos is eternal, etc. Malunkyaputta, it's not the case that when there is the view, the cosmos is eternal, etc., when there is this view, the cosmos is eternal. When there is this view, the cosmos is not eternal. There is still birth. There is still aging. There is still the death. There is sorrow, lamentation, pain, despair, and distress, whose destruction I make known right here in the here and now. It's not the case when there is the view, the cosmos is finite, etc., that there is still the birth, there's the aging, there's the death, there's the sorrow, lamentation, etc. Oh, the paragraph is doubled. It's not the case, and so he goes on like that. He does each one. Is the soul eternal, and so on. But what I'm offering you is the answer to the question of birth, sickness, old age, decay, death, and all these other questions, which he repeats every time, don't lead you there. I'll read one of them through. It's not the case that when there is the view, after death a Tathagata exists, there is the living of the holy life. It's not the case that when there is this view, after death a Tathagata does not exist, that there is the living of the holy life, and on and on and on. These things say the same thing again and again, but the point is clear, I think. So Malunkya Putta, remember what is undeclared by me as undeclared, and what is declared by me as declared. And what is undeclared by me? The cosmos is eternal, is undeclared. The cosmos is not eternal, is undeclared. The cosmos is finite, etc., is undeclared. And why are they undeclared by me? Because they are not connected with the goal, are not fundamental to the holy life. They do not lead to disenchantment, dispassion, cessation, calming, direct knowledge, self-awaking, unbinding. That's why they are not declared by me. And what is declared by me? There is dukkha. There is suffering. This is the origination of suffering. This is the cause of suffering. This is the end of suffering. This is the path of practice leading to the end of suffering. This is declared by me. And why are they declared by me? Because they are connected with the goal, are fundamental to the holy life. They lead to disenchantment, dispassion, cessation, calming, direct knowledge, self-awakening, unbinding. That's why they are declared by me. So, Malunkya Putta, remember what is undeclared by me as undeclared, and what is declared by me as declared. Oops. So back to the folks with whom I've spoken this week who are faced with the big stuff. Turn that off. Why are we practicing? It's clearer and clearer to me. I don't know whether, well, who knows why. Age is part of it. I practice because of dukkha. It's, after all these years, decades, 45 years, and all the therapy I've done, it's most of the time it's pretty easy in 10 or 20 minutes or half an hour or so to get pretty relaxed, even if tumult is happening. But the tumult, the things aren't going the way I would like them to go, or something bad is happening, that the pain of that, to be caught in that and identified with it, to take to take it as though it was real. That's what drives me to my practice, because that's so painful. You know what I mean? It's so easy to get caught up in the stories and the fantasies about things aren't okay, or I can read a little bit of the news or something, or get caught up in a trance state about that. I talked about it 2 weeks ago, about how that can then form an alternate reality, which will then be very unpleasant for some time, until there's waking up and realizing, oh right, those are thoughts. That's not happening here right now. Right here, there's actually ease and peace, and I don't need to be upset about that. Or something can happen in relationship that creates all this Sturm und Drang, the early childhood stuff, or trauma gets provoked, and boom, we're up in the fantasy, and we're no longer here where we are. There's a segue I wanted to make here that I'm lost. Let's see where it is, if I can remember. Oh, yeah. One of the discoveries that I'm making is that the consolation prizes are being less effective for me. The extraordinary pleasures that I get to experience. I have a hot tub. Imagine that. And my kids grew up with, I've always had a hot tub and installed them myself and so on. And I have in my backyard 220 gallons of water that's always hot. 104 degrees, I can get in. So many people on this planet have never been in hot water. I've been among them. People in Tibet, all kinds of places, they've never been in hot water. Step into a shower in the morning, and I live in such luxury, and I think it's pretty common. I have my own car, although it didn't start this morning. That was interesting. We have a second car, my wife's car. But I'm discovering that the pleasures are less convincing. They're nice, but it's like just around the corner, the fact that it's not going to last is really apparent to me. Every day when I leave Jennifer, it's very apparent to me that one of these times that I leave, it will be the last. When I drive out the driveway here, it's like, And so that reality, and it's not leading to being morose. It's leading to, isn't this precious? Right? I'm here right now with you. So it's making relationships all the more precious and beautiful because they are so utterly fleeting. And so that somehow joins up with this dukkha that comes up when things aren't going as wanted, with the suffering side of things, and leads to more and more interest in the inner life, more and more interest in practice. And it's one of my hopes with a talk like this, to encourage you to look at the what's really fundamentally deep down motivating you to practice. It's certainly relaxation, it's certainly psychological well-being, but I'll bet there's a really deeper motivation, which is you really want to understand this birth, sickness, old age, decay, death, being with people you don't want to be with, not being with persons you do want to be with, and having experiences you don't want and not having experiences you do want. So coming back to Malunkyaputta, here's the piece I wanted to. There's lots of directions we can go off thinking about and reading about that are complete distractions. Is the universe eternal? What's going to happen after I die? Here, this person knows what happens after I die. Or there's all these fantasy realms that are really not helpful. And way back 2,600 years ago, the Buddha said, well, I don't talk about these things because they're not attributable to the practice, or they're not supportive of the practice. So what do you think? Any question or comment? If there isn't a question or comment, I'm going to sing a song. Oh, there's a question. Here, would you come get the mic, or someone take this down to him? Jeez, that hurts.
My question is...
Please say your name.
Sure, my name is James. My question is, if there is no self, then what of our unique individual experiences and our perspectives, and this whole idea of self-knowledge?
Mm. I don't think the Buddha said there wasn't a self. It's just this language is so hard. There's neither a self nor there is not a self. There's something here. This is very convincing. And it's changed over time. But it's not permanent. And this is such an important question. It's so central. It's hard to talk about. Easy to be glib about, right? It's a question I've responded to 100 times, but I don't want to do that. Sitting on this spot, a long time ago now, Ajahn Thanisaro, around this question, said, don't get into discussion and wondering about, is there a self, is there not a self, and so on. Instead, use the teaching of anatta as a strategy, which then goes something like this. I've gotten some bad news. There's a threat to the stability of my life. Maybe it's really big. And the future is looming, a future with loss. And the emotions are starting. And their story is, oh, this bad thing's going to happen to me, and what'll I do? And that can all be identified with, or there can be that mysterious movement, awakening to realize, oh, these are thoughts. And here's a self-referential thought. What about this? And if this happens, then I'll feel so bad. And then here's this emotion. Is this my emotion, or is this emotion? Which is, if some of you will have recognized in that the reading at the very end there, he reviewed the Four Noble Truths, or the Four Ennobling Truths. There is suffering, there's a cause, and there's an end, and then there's the path. And so let's say I'm suffering over this loss or this impending loss. There's a lot of resistance to it. So I allow myself, I strategically, intentionally allow myself to open into it and to realize how awful painful it is. And then with my third eye, I cast a glance to the side and notice, so why am I suffering? What's causing this suffering? And then we might discover this suffering is caused because I don't accept that it should be like this, right? I don't like this loss. It shouldn't. I finally got this together and now it's falling apart, right? So there's that second noble truth, which is that the cause of the suffering is wanting reality to be different. And then that becomes, with enough practice and awareness, that becomes really obvious to us, like, oh, I've got this arrow in me and I'm stabbing myself with another arrow, which is, I don't want it to be like this. And then, so the suffering just skyrockets. And then mysteriously and testable by practice, if there is the suffering and then there's the realization of the cause and then the softening into that, then this can sometimes, and it does, just vanish. And the suffering's gone. Circumstance is the same. You might still be grieving. The circumstance is the same, but there's not all the extra stuff. I had an example. Oh yeah. Now a cold, the common cold is not a major illness, but it's really painful. That's why you go to Fred Meyer or the pharmacies, and there's all these cold medicines and analgesics. There's all those, and then there's the health food store ones. And they're there because they sell like hotcakes, because the symptoms are very unpleasant. It's not life-threatening, at least for most people. So this cold was very rapid onset. Monday night, I felt kind of crappy. But then Tuesday morning, not so good. And I went off to my music lesson, and on the way there, all of a sudden, bam, it just kind of blew up. And then I went home. I realized I shouldn't be with people that day. And I went home, and I just lay on the couch in the midst of this storm of sensations and then sneezing. And there was, it was, now, small potatoes compared to real illness, right? But it was very unpleasant. And there was suffering. And then when I just simply turned toward the symptoms and opened up and stopped resisting, there wasn't any suffering anymore. There was just a cold. There were just sensations. There was sneezing and there was tickling and I've done that with the norovirus one time. I had 3 days of the norovirus that I was actually quite convincing because my stomach was distended and there was a lot of pain. But I realized that if I had more pain than this, I would likely be on morphine or a pump, something. And it was kind of comforting that, oh, okay, so who knows? But when the time comes, it looks like I may be able to deal with the pain okay, because I could just open up into it, and so what? It's just unpleasant sensations. And if I had a self, coming back to your question, or seeing if I can, it's very easy for the mind to go, this is myself, and I'm sick, and and then there's the story of the self, and then there's so much suffering. Whereas this strategy of anatta releases it. Any help? There's the philosophical question, is there a self or is there not a self? And the Buddha said, you'll never sort that out. It doesn't, it's there. This is real. And it's temporary. Vic, ready? For you.
Hi, my name is Vic. And just going back to that question about self, I'm wondering if there's something we can learn from going back to the Sanskrit word of that. Because I think anatta, the Sanskrit word for that is anatman, and that means not atman. And atman, I think, means soul. I think.
Yes.
I'm not sure.
Uh-huh.
So I wonder if it means that there is no soul as opposed to there's no self.
It does. The literal translation is no soul, non-soul, which was revolutionary at the time, because here's the Buddha in the midst of early Brahminical Hinduism, and he's saying, folks, all this Atman stuff, because what does the Atman say? Well, when I die, it's okay because my Atman is going to go on. Then that can be comforting as a belief. I mean, in my childhood, if I was good and if I went to church on Good Friday and there were certain things I couldn't do, but then when I died, I would go up and be at the right hand. That was pretty nice. But what happens when you stop believing that?
Yeah, I think the Atman, Paramatman, and Anatman, or Atman means soul.
Yes.
Paramatma means there's something outside of soul, that's the God, I suppose. There was these philosophical discussions about, is Atma the same as Paramatma?
Right.
And I think the Buddha's teaching said there is no soul. So instead of not
I don't think
self,
it did. I think it said, don't go there.
I think Anatman means no soul.
Right.
So.
Hi, everyone. I'm Michael and Robert. This is a non-self question.
Uh-oh. Another one.
But it is still within the
Can
the
you
realm.
ask it with your non-self, please?
I will try my best. Or my best will try. It is still a question within the three characteristics of reality, that realm.
Huh?
I have no problem with non-permanent self. I have no problem with impermanence. But there is within me this conflict for dukkha, because how could there be something like dukkha, which I relate as a emotion or a feeling or a reaction, if everything is impermanent? So it seems like this goes against the first characteristic of impermanence. And so that is my question. It kind of seems like if there is dukkha, then there could be whatever is at the other end of the spectrum, maybe nirvana as well. So that's my question for you this morning.
Well, funny. I've been getting in a kind of silly mood. But it's not a silly question. There's kind of an equation, I think. To the degree that there is an experience of self, there is dukkha, and it's a perfect equation. When there's I'm here and this is the context I'm in and I want this context to continue and it should continue, and the context begins to unravel around the edges, I don't like it. Right? It's not going the way I want it. If I were to remember in that moment, oh, this was never going to last from the beginning. And in fact, I'm not just this, I happen to be the whole thing. Then the dukkha is gone. That the dukkha is reliant upon there being identification with separateness. And so any movement toward love, toward emptiness and letting go, is always a diminishment of dukkha. I don't mean love in terms of enmeshment and that kind of thing. I mean love in terms of allowing things to be exactly as they are. Wasn't bad, not bad. Anything else? Oh, please, Wally.
Back to the self. What I understand what Buddha said
is that the self exists for a quantum moment, this instant right now. The next quantum moment, the self exists as a result of the karma from the previous quantum moment self, and so on and so forth. But it becomes, in our best understanding, a verb rather than a noun. That a self is a verb, selfing, not a noun, not a thing. So we are always selfing. We are always becoming new selves based on a different quantum moment. For instance, my deciding to stand up here, though, was something, boom, out of the blue, another thing that isn't my karma necessarily, but just a decision, or to put it more bluntly, shit happens. And, and so that's part of the growth of ourselves, is that both stuff happens and ourselves happen as a quantum moment, something that Buddha would argue with other, during his life, he would argue with other religions about. So then he went to a point, I know, I read this as well in a different sutta, to when you really want to try to figure out all the causes of everything that happened to us to make ourselves, that's another question you don't go and try to figure out because it's just too much.
Right.
So thank you.
Thank you. Oh, can we do it? We can if you're quick. I think the beasts are in the.
I would just like to ask, what is the self? Because I think I could subtract an arm or a leg, or I could have a traumatic brain injury. I could speed up, or imagine you're looking in the mirror and you speed up your life to 10 seconds too fast to get attached to any part of it. You know, are you the process? Are you the empty space before and after? I don't know what the self is.
Me neither. Me neither. But there are some things that I'm convinced it's not at this point. It's moods and it's opinions and it's body. Not always convinced of that, but that's the direction. Well, thank you all for coming. Such a privilege for me to get to play this role, and I'm very grateful that you're here. And in a few moments, I'll ask you to get up and to form a circle. And when we do that, please introduce your introduce your thing that we're debating whether it exists or not. Your self or not self, or that which is neither a self nor not a self. Your Tathagata. Share the name that your parents stuck on this thing with the person on your left and right. And please do come and share a little food and companionship afterwards. All right, let's pull it together. Spirituality is very serious business. Let's get the kids in here. I'm losing it. Hello there. I'm going to snitch this. Hi, Maya. So please take a moment to reach out. Can I hold your hand? And may I hold your hand? Thank you. My goodness. I just discovered something. You have another invader from space. It looks like. Wow. I didn't know. How congratulations. Maya, you're going to hate this. No, it's not true. It's not true. Yes, it's true. It's true and not true. So, please become aware of the hand to your right and left. This is the only moment that you'll hold this hand, right now. It's now. Right? Might never happen again. Thank you for the sound effects. Very helpful. So why not wish the person on your right well? What would be a beautiful wish that you could offer them? And then the person on your left, wish them well too. And then we can extend this, since our thoughts are remarkably capable, we can extend it to everyone in this room, then to everyone around us in all these houses, and then to everybody on the planet, to our brothers and sisters of the air, the earth, and the waters, to all of us. And so this then becomes a practice of relaxing back into the great mystery, the great web of life, of which we are an essential part. So we now have our ritual of singing. Who's going to do that? Great. So,
May all beings be happy.
May all beings be happy. May all beings be happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Yay, thank you. And then, the great practice of the wish. Everyone in the room gets to think of what would be your greatest wish. And then we all take a giant breath together and blow out the candle. Not yet, not yet. Wait. Premature blowing, stop. Hang on. Oh, don't go away though. Ready? Come close. Sorry, I didn't mean to scare you. You ready? Come close. 1, 2, 3, go. Blow. Yes. Yay, we did it. Thank you all for coming. Do enjoy your practice at home and come to our other events and come have some tea, please. I love this.